It was a long and winding road that led me to interpreting, actually. I didn't start off at an interpreting, translating school, university. I studied law, actually. And maybe 3 years into that, I realized that that wasn't really my thing. So I spoke English. I thought, what the heck, I want to do something with languages. And I became an English teacher. I taught English for 8 years and see the bends on the road. And one day, one of my students said, would you like to help us with a conference? They need a translator, a live translator. It was for somebody who came from the British Library. And I said, well, why not? And I ended up in a cupboard, facing a wall, interpreting, which was something that I had never done, I had never heard of, really. And I found it interesting, daunting, and decided I didn't think that was my cup of tea at all. Now, years later, there was an article in the newspaper, not an article, an ad actually. They were looking for translators for the European communities at the time. That was 1987, I think. And I thought, why not? I spoke English, I spoke French, Spanish was my mother tongue. I loved languages anyway. I thought, let's give it a try. The thing was, we had to take an exam in order to do a training course to become a translator. And that's what I did, and I was chosen, and I became a translator for the Commission of the European Communities, as it then was called. And I worked as a translator for 5 years. I had a very good time, and after a while I decided I did no longer want to write, I'd rather talk. And I realized that you could actually change posts within the Commission because somebody else had done it before me. Well, I signed up for another training course. That was my my profession, doing one stage after another. That was quite stressful because that's what these training courses are. You have an exam every 2 months, and at the end of the training course, that's 6 months after you started, well, you pass or you don't. Well, in my particular case, it wasn't so stressful because, I mean, all that would happen to me if I didn't pass that exam was that I would lose faith and I would go back to the translation service. No, not such a big deal. But I succeeded, and I felt really welcome. I thought, well, this is home. This is what I want to do. It wasn't a cupboard. A booth was something very different. I had super colleagues, and I could do what I really wanted, which was, well, I was going to say talking, but basically talking in languages. I started off doing English and French into Spanish. I also did Spanish into English because I've always loved English, and it came naturally to me. And that was it. Here I was. It was 1993. It was just after, or just about, at the time when Sweden, Austria and Finland joined. It was right at the time when the new agreement was signed. I kept being told these stories about working till all hours at night, hardly stopping for lunch. And when I started working, my colleagues would disappear behind the corridors because, you know, they were talking about the agreement. And well, I couldn't compare the situation before and after, but everybody was telling me that it was something wonderful because at least you knew what you never knew when you were going to finish, but you couldn't finish after 6:30, and that was something wonderful, marvelous. At the time, as John Swale said in another video that I saw, French was the dominant language, if you like. Everybody communicated in French, but when these three countries joined, you know, English started making this entrance. I was going to say insidiously, but no, I mean, that everybody spoke English. In fact, there were very few people in the Spanish booth who did not have English C. There must have been 3, 4, 5 people who eventually added English along the years. And everything was new. We didn't have computers. There were glossaries in the booths, if you had them. There were paper documents in the booth, if you were lucky. You had, well, of course, if you knew what they were going to talk about, you could prepare for it. But you needed the glossaries. So, you know, you had to work a lot on your own, working on your own glossaries as well. On the other hand, well, the meetings were more predictable than now. You had management committees, and you needed the help of your colleague because, you know, you couldn't get down all the numbers and everything. And but that was it. We had a method where there was Cristal, and I think everybody must have heard of Cristal if you've worked for SCIG. That's the phone number you phoned to know where you were assigned to work. And you had to go to Bochette at the weekend. Everything was printed on a paper on the wall so that you knew where you were supposed to go. Planning and programming were much smaller. Planning was basically one person, and he remained one person for a long time. Bert left us a few years ago. Anyway, and you had programming as well. Now, that's another part of my work life. I started working with programming as a rotatrice 20 years ago, 25 years ago, a long time ago, well before 2004 in any case. It must have been in the year 2000 or right before. And it was very interesting. Our task was to help people, put interpreters in meetings, but also we were a sort of link with the people in the booth, because sometimes there were questions. Why am I changed? Why I was in a meeting and then all of a sudden I'm put somewhere else? Sometimes people did not understand why things were happening that way, and we were in charge, so to speak, of explaining these things to them. It's been very rewarding, working in programming for all these years. Sometimes I worked, I don't know, maybe once every 3 months. Sometimes it was once every 6 months. But I've always been in contact with them, and I've seen how their work has evolved in the last years as well. And it hasn't been easy, which brings me back to the current situation. What with COVID and everything, platforms coming in, interpreting is not what it used to be. It should be much better because the conditions are much better, but in fact, people are suffering. You can't hear very well sometimes. You have problems, and quite honestly, I'm leaving at the end of the month, and I'm sad because I'm leaving all this behind. I've had a rich professional life, but given the current situation, I don't think I could take it much longer. And you know, I sometimes remember that in the beginning, that day in the cupboard. Well, it has happened again. Some people who had to go to a ministerial meeting, and while the ministers were in a room, they were behind a wall interpreting for them. I think it's really sad. I don't like the things. I don't like the way things are going, and I wish we could go back in time, and I wish people would come back to the rooms so that interpreters could interpret properly with the people physically there. And that's all I can say.